Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for getting up bright and early this morning to come down to London. It's really lovely to see so many of you here. For those who I've not met before, I'm Jo Harrison. I'm the Director for Strategic Planning and Sustainability at United Utilities, and I've been involved in the CaSTCo project right from the beginning. So I'm really, really pleased that we can sort of all come together today in order to sort of celebrate all the work that has gone on so far, but also to point to the future and look at how we can sort of take all the learning and develop that and continue all the great collaboration that has been underway going forward. So over 30 organisations have been involved in CaSTCo, which is extraordinary. And that ranges from water companies to NGOs to academia and beyond. So it is a unique and huge collaboration. And it was one of the very first Ofwat innovation projects. So we think we're probably one of the first of those projects to report, but it's been an extraordinary way of bringing together a really significant amount of funding to make a step change and to do something really, really different. So I suppose going back, what was the problem that we were trying to solve? We had a whole system of environmental data that was old, uncoordinated, not necessarily based in sort of logic and science and fact. And what we wanted to do was to create something where we just enabled lots and lots of different data sources to come together in one place so that we can get a really rich picture of what's happening in the natural environment. And that's really, really critical. It's critical to make sure that we underpin all the investment that's going to happen over the next 25 years with real sound science, data and evidence. And that's just a sort of fundamental requirement that we need going forward. So today, we're really going to focus on understanding some of the case studies, some of the things that we have learned through those individual pieces of work that people have done, but also to look at the roadmap that we're proposing. So how can we bring all that learning together and carry on this amazing work to have one place where we have all of the science, data and evidence that we need to underpin all the work that we do to drive improvements in the natural river environment. So I'm just really, really pleased that we can be here to celebrate that, but also just think about all the challenges that we've got moving forward and how we can utilise the approach that we've got to enable us to do that. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll hand over to Mark.
Thanks so much, Jo. And I just want to really thank Jo and United Utilities for all the support that you've given. This project wouldn't have happened without you, and it's been great working with you as partners. So great to see you all here today. And I think everyone here, as well as all our partners and community groups and volunteer citizen scientists who are too numerous to fill this room, have built so much really over the last 3 years through CaSTCo, and we're really looking forward to sharing what we've done together today. But that movement that we've built, I think we've got to continue to drive forward this agenda. So this isn't the end of anything. It's really the start of an exciting new phase on that long journey. And so in the months ahead, we're going to be working hard to try and secure the investment and the governance structures and long-term partnerships we need to ensure that the legacy of CaSTCo continues to grow and hopefully becomes business as usual across the whole country. I was just saying to Jo and Jo as we were discussing this, we don't know what problem we're trying to fix, and that's pretty fundamental if you're trying to get rivers healthy again. We need to understand the problem that we're fixing. So we've been in discussion this year with DEFRA and Ofwat about both the immediate bridging funding and the long-term funding required to roll out the CaSTCo roadmap at scale across regional hubs and local partnerships to inform national environment decision-making. We're already applying to the next rounds of the Ofwat innovation and implementation funding. And through the roadmap, we're going to be looking for other funding as we see that being essential to complement any government and regulatory funding if CaSTCo is to be able to scale up from the work done so far in Wales and England to cover the entire United Kingdom and Ireland. So we're committed to ensuring that data is joined up and trusted, and putting citizen science data alongside regulatory and other professional monitoring and data. And we want to see community monitoring supported by training, funding, standards, and recognition. We've had a lot of people rushing off and doing great things, but it hasn't been part of a structured system. And we want to reshape governance to better connect local action to national policy. And I think that's particularly relevant at the moment with post-Cunliffe, and we're looking at all these new structures, that this could be a fundamental kind of building block of that new water system. So really hope you enjoy the day today. We're going to showcase the brilliant work and achievements we've realised, but commit really to looking to building the future through co-delivering our CaSTCo roadmap. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce another Joe Jolly, who's the Director of Environment and Innovation at Ofwat. And again, without Ofwat's funding, none of this would have been possible. So we're very grateful to you for your support. Thank you.
And your colleague.
Michelle Walker.
Thank you so much, Mark and Joe. And what a privilege to be stood here just to say a few words about really what this project means to me and, you know, our vision for it, our vision here as to how we can continue this journey from the brilliant stage it's got to today. So, apologies. I guess I'm probably not having to convince anyone in this room, but I wondered if you just indulge me for a couple of minutes, just for me to share why I do the job I do and what a life well lived will look like for me. And that's ultimately why I care so much about this project. So a life well lived for me will be that I've done the best I can through the work I do for the planet before I die. And that's it, you know, only I can reconcile what that means, what my best is. But the levers and the powers and the agency that we have to do better for the planet, and better in every sense. I love the framework of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, where we think about equality, we think about better education, zero hunger, no poverty, decent work, economic growth. If you go after, and of course it's about air quality, of course it's about water quality and land quality, it's all these things, but we need to go after all of them to create a planet that is fair and just for all, and ultimately one that we can survive on, and all who depend on this beautiful planet. And this diagram is the starkest one I've ever seen that just brings that to life. So it's from the IPCC report just a couple of years ago, and it says the extent to which current and future generations will experience a hotter and different world depends on the choices we make because it's on our watch, it's now, isn't it? Now and in the near term, and you'll be very familiar with the climate stripes, but what I hadn't seen until a friend shared it with me was the forward projection of those climate stripes under different heating scenarios. And obviously we're on track, as you know, probably around the sort of 3-ish degrees mark, 2.5, 3 degrees. And, you know, we say to the end of the century, but that's not far away, is it? 75 years. It's not far. And under those scenarios, this becomes an unlivable planet, you know, so that this is the sort of heating scenarios that we're locked into right now, and hence the need for action, hence the need for relentless action by people who really care, and for those who maybe can't have the capacity and the privilege to make the difference that we can in this room. So this is why my job matters to me, this is why this project matters. But the brilliant thing is, I know that can sound a bit Ms, but the really important thing is we have a choice. Isn't that the most exciting thing? And my ask in a way, and again, I think you're already there, which is why you're here anyway, but it's how we sit with that duality, isn't it, of enough discomfort, certainly not despair. I'm in no way despairing, far from it. And that relentless and genuine hope and belief that we can make a difference, and we can. But if we sit in that space, it's uncomfortable, but I believe, it certainly works for me, that that's what helps me drive the biggest difference. It helps me overcome my fears and my doubts, because there's something so much more important than me and the things I worry about for myself. So this project, doesn't it just wrap up all of that in one story? And it's an absolute story of firsts. So this was the first project to be awarded through the first Water Breakthrough Challenge competition that was run by the Ofwat Innovation Fund. As you said, Joe, it's the first, to get to this stage, going from just an innovative concept in 2021 through to this prototype today that we're launching, the roadmap that we're launching today. And in 2024, more than 5,000 people took part in the Big River Watch, submitting over 3,500 surveys. And again, that Big River Watch is running now. It's due to finish tomorrow. So if you haven't done it already, there's still time. I know last year, over 60% of participants said that they were new to citizen science. Incredible. And this is when Mark says, this is a movement. This has gone from a project to a movement. And one of my favourite phrases is by an American architect, and I've written it down because it's called Buckminster Fuller, and he said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." And that's exactly what you have done here, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So this project combines many of my favourite things, the environment, data, sorry, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, and people choosing to do things better because they can. This was a choice. No one had to do this. They chose to do it, and that's such a powerful thing for me. What choices can I make every single day that's better for society, better for the environment, better for the economy? Because there's so much untapped potential every single day. And we're at this stage now, aren't we, of, well, let's face it, we're 6 months into a 5-year AMP period that has investment of over £100 billion. Now, if that's prorated, that's 10 billion already spent. I understand it isn't prorated, but, it gives you a scale, doesn't it? What are the choices we can make about the value that can deliver? What can we do simply through the choices? How can we advocate more citizen science through every single project that we run, everything that we do? And as Mark said, the planets could not have aligned more. And could you name your colleague who's... Michelle Walker. Is she here today? Michelle. So this was Michelle's idea and advocated for this more than 10 years ago, I understand, Michelle. Is that right?
It's a long time. 2019 was probably the first.
Really? So that's the level of sort of visionary and anticipation of this being so important. And look where we are now, with an independent water commission published, saying that we need to be integrating data, we need to be integrating everybody involved in the catchment, and we need to be making better decisions. The only way we can make better decisions is if we have better data. And so citizen science is absolutely fundamental to this. And so, what the team are launching today is the roadmap, this vision that by 2035, every river in England and Wales is monitored, understood and cared for through a single open data system that unites regulators, utilities, researchers, businesses and communities. This isn't a pipe dream, is it? This is already happening. So the foundations for all this are here. It's been co-created by, as you say, Joe, tens, if not possibly hundreds, I don't know, of partners. And it is grounded in genuine evidence. So we don't need to think anymore about what is it we need to do. This is what we need to do. Now we need to continue doing it. It's all about action. It's all about doing. And that's great because we're right at the start of an AMP period where we have a whole load of doing to do. And so these are the three key pillars of the roadmap. So we have to Advanced integration of citizen science, quality and recognition. So this is about making sure that we've got really clear standards, that we know the standards that we're reporting against, so that it's comparable, it's recognisable, and it's validated. You know, it has more power because it's validated, it's to a specific standard. We have a national data system that talks to each other. We can join data together, and the more data we have, the more insight, the more evidence, and then the more we know how to look after our rivers and all who depend on it. And ultimately, we've got to have a really strong governance. This needs to be a sort of national a national council for citizen science. How do we build this into the regional planning system? How do we build this into Cunliffe's recommendations of bringing a whole catchment together, making better decisions with all who depend on that catchment? And so, the messages for today. It's been an absolutely extraordinary journey for the team, and we must take a moment to recognise that. These things don't happen by chance, they take years and they take decades. And you only get to this point with real determination, grit, courage, and a genuine belief that you can make a difference. And that's what the team have done. I couldn't be more impressed. Obviously, the timing couldn't be better. This is an absolutely essential part of the fundamental reform that we must bring about, not only for the water sector, but for the water system as a whole, for the environment as a whole. And the only way we can do that is by having the data and evidence that we need, that we can make those important trade-offs in a really well-informed way. We can make the right decisions at the right time for the varying pulls and requirements that happen within it across a catchment. And yes, it is about the Cunliffe report. It is about better stewardship for communities. It is about, how can we serve communities better and make sure that they have what they need to thrive. But also, let's not forget the Corey report as well, that look at regulation and his big focus on markets. How do we make markets work? And how do we make markets work ultimately for the environment? Because if they're not working for the environment, then how do we have an environment? I'm not talking about environmental markets. I'm saying, how do we make all markets work for the environment? And again, how do we know we're doing that? Data, evidence. It has to come back to that. So, have a fantastic day. This is all about how do we implement these recommendations? How do we really get behind it as a community? And how do we make sure that next year's Big River Watch is 10 times the size of this one? So, and don't forget, not too late to get out there tomorrow. Thank you so much, and enjoy your day.
Thanks so much, Jo, and just brilliant to hear someone describing data as a guilty pleasure. I definitely share that with you. And by the way, how cool is it that the Wi-Fi code is "We value truth"? I think that needs to be our strapline in future. So hi everyone, I'm Michelle Walker, Technical Director with the Rivers Trust, and I have the pleasure of sharing with you a bit of a snapshot of some of the achievements we've realised over the last few years of CaSTCo. But before we start, I wanted to take you back in time. Jo sort of mentioned that, I was kind of involved right at the beginning. It certainly wasn't just one person who came up with the idea. We worked on this back in 2019. There was a group of us, the CaBA Catchment Data User Group. We met regularly, and we had a forum in Bristol Zoo, actually. I remember it well because we had a talk about what happens if the lions escape at the beginning. And we heard from the Chesapeake Monitoring Cooperative in the States, which was our original inspiration, really. They had formed a whole alliance of 100-odd citizen science groups, and they'd developed standards, and they'd really increased the rigour of what they were doing and coordinated it and pulled it all together. And it meant that for this statutory reporting for those 6 states in the Chesapeake Bay, a quarter of that data came from citizen science. It was phenomenal. So we heard from them, and then as a workshop, we started to look at the barriers and opportunities for trying to do something like that in the UK, for setting up a monitoring cooperative. And we had done work for the last 5 years or so with CABA and with the Rivers Trust, trying to pull together guidance and things, but this was the first time we really collaboratively, as a group of people, asked if there was an appetite for a national standardisation and management, and we got that mandate. And from that, a few of us set up a working group, and we started to work up a proposal for the Catchment Monitoring Cooperative, as it was then, and we consulted and we got some really good support, and it started to build momentum, and we started to write funding bids. And that was when Amina Abubakar came on board, and she identified the Ofwat Innovation Fund as a perfect fit for what we were trying to achieve. And we looked through the innovation strategy, and it was just like, tick, 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 this really does fit well. So, you know, you're going to hear more about what we've achieved with all of that investment. But just a reminder of what the problem is that we've been tackling all along. It's about that we're making billions of pounds worth of investment decisions on an increasingly thin evidence base nationally. We've got real gaps in our knowledge, and we've had Rivers Trust, catchment partnerships, wildlife trusts, lots of local communities filling in those gaps with their own local knowledge in their catchments. But it's not been coordinated. It's very fragmented, that evidence base, and it's very difficult to pull it all together, to feed it into decision-making processes, and for decision makers to know whether they can trust that data. That's fundamental. So CaSTCo's been working to streamline this data value chain, and we've been working through 8 demonstrator catchments, but also nationally, to develop and test approaches and to see how we could start to build that national framework to increase the quality of the data we can produce and to increase the trust in that local evidence base, to ensure it gets used alongside other tiers of information to really inform decisions. And we've brought together some of the project's achievements today under 5 key themes, really, and they each shine a light on different aspects of what we've accomplished. So the first one is really around collaboration and community practice, and I think you're going to hear the word collaboration so many times today, but it really has been amazing to see it unfold over the last few years. As you've heard, we've had over 30 partners working together nationally and locally. We've co-designed so much on CaSTCo. I think I can't remember how many Miro boards we've created on this project. Should be another impact stat for our report. But we've co-designed everything from the vision, from the charter, things like the method protocols, the data principles, the collaborative monitoring plans. It's all been collaboration. And we've had quarterly meetings. They've been the favourite bits, I think, for a lot of us, being able to actually see each other face to face, hear what's going on, go round the demos and see what they're achieving. And we've had lots and lots of online collaboration spaces, and we've really built a community of practice. So it isn't top down, there isn't a sort of national management that's saying this is how you should be doing it. We're co-creating it together, sharing that best practice, and sharing our mistakes as well. This is innovation. We're supposed to make mistakes as long as we learn from them. And I think it's really helped everyone feel ownership of what we've built, and that's been really critical. But another key theme is trust. We know that before CaSTCo, regulators, water companies and other partners didn't have much trust in citizen science data or its ability to provide a useful evidence base. And to frame this, we've pulled on Meister's trust equation, which I absolutely love. We saw it first at the stream sprint back in Newcastle this year, but it's just completely made sense of what we're doing on CaSTCo. And trust builds when citizen science data is credible, and when the information gathered and the action that you take with it is reliable, and when strong relationships form across different organisations. But it's all balanced by keeping that organisational self-interest in check. And to build trust in the credibility of our citizen science data, we've done so much work on CaSTCo. We've audited and shortlisted a whole range of methods, just, massive scope really. And we've used a tiered framework to match those methods to purposes so people are clear what they can use that data for with confidence. And we selected and invested in 4 key methods to test out how we can improve that rigour. And we've worked with partners like Zoological Society of London, Cartographer, Riverfly Partnership, universities, water companies, regulators, NGOs. So many people have worked on increasing and agreeing on those protocols and standards. And we've developed the training and we've published the guidance. We've also been validating our citizen science water quality data in particular against lab tests across many of the demos. And that evidence base has really helped to demonstrate the rigour of what we can achieve. And we've worked with standard agencies like the Standing Committee of Analysts, the Water Company Blue Book method, to really look at what we can do if we get recognised quality benchmarks. We've worked with the Open Data Institute and Stream partners recently to look at what a trust framework might look like if we encode that into our data systems. And to reliably gather data, the volunteer coordinators, they are the heroes in my book of CaSTCo. They've been a critical role in every demo. They've been recruiting and training and motivating and retaining those thousands of citizen scientists. They've been managing their health and well-being with support from some of the resources that we've co-designed around health and safety guidance. And key to that volunteer coordinator role is ensuring that regular data can be collected to an agreed sampling strategy so you can get data on a regular basis on a wide area, and that the data's quality checked. That's another key element of this. And we've had national and local effort to make sure that all of that data becomes available and accessible to people, because if it's not reliably available, again, the system falls down. But it's also about building trust with the citizen scientists that put their free time into this, that their efforts are going to lead to impact. It's about sharing those stories. Things like 70% of Thames Water's surface water outfall programme is informed by citizen science. And where we've got United Utilities and Environment Agency and Ribble Rivers Trust working together to look at how that water blitz data that they collect can inform decision-making around WINEP and investments in the future. And another key to building that trust is about the strong relationships that have been formed between all of the organisations on CaSTCo. We've seen colleagues in NGOs, regulators, water companies, farmers, academia, all listening and discussing and building confidence to change things. I loved what you said earlier, Joe, about you don't change things by just tinkering around the edges. It's taking a bold step, and to do that, you've got to build trust by listening and understanding where people are coming from. And one really good example is the pollution instant reporting system that the Anglian demo have evolved. So pollution reports from CaSTCo trained scientists get tagged in the national instant reporting system. And that makes it possible for EA area teams to respond more quickly and rapidly to problems. And we've seen examples of where those have been fixed, and the citizen scientists have gone out and recorded improvements. It's just fantastic. But another key thing that we've got to guard against is that self-interest. So how have we done that on CaSTCo? We've ensured that any monitoring we do is planned collaboratively at the catchment level with partners in each catchment, ensuring that the decisions that they want to make are guided and that we have shared goals and collective benefit from this. And that's documented in collaborative monitoring plans. And you're going to hear more about that from Paul later. And that really, all of that work we've done on building trust means we have started to see a shift. We talked about the fact that, the perception of citizen scientists was an oil tanker that we needed to turn around. I can see that oil tanker started to turn now. We've still got work to do that everywhere and nationally, but it really has changed from being, can we trust the data, to what can we do with the trusted data? And I think that's fantastic. So what can we do with the trusted data? Well, we've been working on that as well. Together we've developed some data visualization and analysis and interpretation resources. For example, Aaron's catchment scorecards, Teams data dashboards. We've integrated citizen science data with continuous monitoring sondes in the USC in London. We've produced local evidence packs for every catchment, and they've got a standard set of questions and data outputs to help those catchments start to answer the questions in their collaborative monitoring plans. And we've tested and developed weight of evidence approaches, so using and integrating citizen science into CABA partnership decision making alongside all sorts of other tiers of information. For example, looking at causes of nutrient pollution in the bean and eutrophication weight of evidence in the ribble. And we've really empowered communities to be part of this process by contributing data and knowledge. And we've integrated citizen science with catchment models to inform decision making. For example, with the Riverfly partnership and EA, we've benchmarked citizen science Riverfly monitoring initiative to the EA's own invertebrate model, so we can set target and trigger levels consistently. And in the TAMAR, we've developed AI models and open source tools for targeting interventions, and we've produced guidance on how to use models to target monitoring, how to use monitoring to calibrate models, and how to use them together in decision making. And it puts us in a really strong position to understand how AI tools that are popping up everywhere at the moment can support decision making in the future. But we've always wanted CaSTCo to escape from those demo catchments, and it really has. We're well on our way to having citizen scientists active in every water body in England and Wales. And thanks so much for plugging Big River Watch earlier. Please do get out there and join in. That has really helped us to build a funnel of new citizen scientists to get them recruited and interested in other sort of tiers of survey. We've grown capacity through training courses. We've established training hubs for things like the morph habitat surveys. We've worked with Earthwatch to expand the Great UK Water Blitz. We've got water rangers, another national scheme. We've got lots of opportunity for people to join in. And every week we're getting groups coming to us and asking to join CaSTCo through the form on the website, prepared to sign up to those principles that we've established. And we provide that guidance and tools to everybody, from the data principles to the monitoring planning guidance, help selecting methods, but also data management guidance and the data hub. That allows anyone to submit their data and have it findable and accessible on our website. And we've explored how citizen science can benefit society in other ways. The Mersey demo have developed social impact improvements, working with schools and colleges and universities to engage and upskill young people. And in the Anglian demo, they've built on work with UKCEH and CCRI to evaluate the social health and well-being benefits of citizen science. And finally, we've worked together to shape the future, from feeding our learning into the Cunliffe Review to get government recognition of the value of citizen science, to engaging and aligning with many initiatives out there such as NCEA and STREAM. We've brought match funding and technical innovation from UKRI and Horizon funded projects, and the USC demo are using data gathered under CaSTCo to underpin future environmental markets. And now, thanks to Ollie and team, we've a comprehensive and detailed roadmap showing us where we can take what we've tested and developed and scale this up nationally to achieve real lasting impact. We've shown that citizen science data can be robust, credible, reliable, and a valuable information source to inform decision making, target investment, and engage society. So from that workshop in Bristol Zoo 6 years ago and a handful of people forming a working group, we've built a movement that's powered by hundreds, quite honestly, of inspiring, knowledgeable, enthusiastic, creative, brilliant people. I've been really proud to be part of it, and I can't wait to see where we can take this in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle. Inspiring stuff. I've only been with the project for 9 months or so, but it's been really evident how passionate and dedicated everyone who I've worked with has been. It's been a real pleasure to see that coming together. So welcome to this session where we'll be unpacking, exploring the roadmap in more detail, and how we look forward essentially to kind of continually to collaboratively shape catchment monitoring in England and Wales. So thanks to all of the efforts of the partners that have got us to where we are today. My name's Ollie Rodd. That's the wrong slide. There we go. My name's Ollie Rodd. I'm Associate Director at our utilities. It's been my absolute pleasure to be part of this journey for the last 9 months or so, working with many of you in the room here today, but also many partners online also, to really look at how we collectively reimagine how we project forwards, we think creatively and gather those insights and experiences that have been so fundamental to shaping this roadmap, and really what the vision for the future that's come out in this really pivotal document, I think. Delighted to be joined by Jessie Rout, who is CaSTCo Programme Manager and PMO Lead at the Rivers Trust as well, who will be walking us through a little bit more detail in the actual roadmap itself. And just a personal thanks as well for all your support throughout the last kind of 9 months or so. It's been a real kind of team effort and a really collaborative approach. So thank you to all of the team at the Rivers Trust as well. We'll be talking through the roadmap and a little more on the kind of process to how we got there, what we've been doing today, where we've arrived, and then also kind of what it means for a fantastic panel of speakers that will be talking us through their perceptions, their perspectives, and then some of the kind of hurdles and some of the barriers that we'll need to overcome to deliver the roadmap. So it's exciting to be able to launch this today. I think there is multiple QR codes across the room. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, please do download the document. It's a bit of a beast. It's 70-odd pages long, but hopefully you'll get the time to kind of walk through it. There's a lot of detail within there to really understand how we get to some of this kind of collective ambition that we share. It's been a real effort and a truly collaborative effort really to get to where we are today. So as you can see by all those logos there, it's over 60 participants across academia, NGOs, water companies, government, and citizens as well, and crucially the water industry, coming together into this collaborative co-design and co-creation process. We used a number of sprints, probably a little bit of sprint fatigue by the end of it, but it was a really good process to really kind of draw in insights and perspectives from a real wide range of people. We held those online and also then in person as well, and it was great to get to know all of you through that process. For me, the roadmap turns 4 years of innovation pilots within the CaSTCo project into a clear and actionable guide to implement them going forward. The document provides key insights that were uncovered by CaSTCo, but also then really demonstrates the importance of collaborative catchment monitoring for improved intelligence in the way we deliver measurable impact for the environment. So it's the end, I suppose, of the CaSTCo project per se, and I think we've kind of, this has been said by other speakers as well, but it's actually a really exciting jumping off point and platform to then grow what is so crucial to take the pilots that have happened to date into the future and how we scale those nationally. Like I said, we'll be walking through the document in a little bit more detail, and also there'll be some panelists that will be taking us through their perspectives, but I think with that I'll pass it to you, Jessie, to take us through the recommendations.
Thank you. Hello. We've used a lot of big words on CaSTCo the last few years, so I've picked 2 modest words to start off my talk, with and for, and then we'll get back to the big words as I guide you through our roadmap. It's been an honour to work with and for you all as partners on CaSTCo, and I'm deeply impressed by how we have all worked with and for the communities and the environment. And it's really important to me that we keep that in mind, what this is all for, and that we've worked with each other to get there. This is for the communities and it's for improved environment. So with that in mind, I will be your guide for the next 10 minutes through a large, ambitious, impactful roadmap, but we don't do it any other way on CaSTCo, so into the roadmap. The first recommendation, and I think just starting off, is that The roadmap has been based on everything partners and communities have achieved and learned through CaSTCo, and based on when we've brought in wider organisations to reflect on CaSTCo and think about what's needed going forward. So this really is this continuation and the build of that movement. We have tried to find 3 key recommendations to focus everyone around. I'll take you through these. We will hear more about them during the panel talk, and then we will also see all of the work of what our demonstrators have achieved in the showcase. This afternoon, we will talk about specific actions and commitments from the roadmap. So lots of exciting work today. So the first recommendation is that we advance citizen science quality, recognition, and integration. Through CaSTCo, as Michelle said, we have demonstrated where citizen science can augment regulatory and professional monitoring. We've tested some of the QA processes required, quality assurance. Please speak with our demonstrator partners today about what we've achieved through some of those tests. But trust in the data starts with understanding how it was collected. And we've laid the foundations through the work of our demonstrators for those future systems of accreditation and integration of data. That's what we want to see now. We want to see established a national citizen science accreditation scheme. We want it to provide quality assurance and rigor for trust in data and decision-making, proving that this works at regional scale and can be locally tailored. We want to see training and micro-grants at local scale. We want to compare citizen science with augmenting that regulatory monitoring. We want longer term, the impact to see national and philanthropic funding for this work, future-proofing the accreditation of citizen science. The second recommendation is to establish a national catchment data system and standards. We have made strides towards this already. The CaSTCo Open Access Data Hub is already unlocking previously unavailable data. We've seen millions of data points now shared openly for the first time, and we've also built on past data sets, bringing out those brilliant case studies we've seen in the past and through CaSTCo, where we've seen citizen science data being integrated and compared with the wider regulatory and professional data. You've heard from Michelle about each of the impacts within each of the demos we've already seen for starting the threads of this national catchment data system and standards. We've also got openly shared data principles and consensus around that, which was a big step for us the last year. We now need to see wider collaboration and co-design to get this right. But this would unlock new futures, we believe, at the national scale for the way in which we're able to understand catchment and river health through better and more open data. Core of all of this is the governance and the data standards. We need to do more work on this with more people. Running the system at regional tests and national scales next, we believe, will give us that certainty to roll out a system we are confident in and is aggregating those various data sets and able to connect with new data sets from citizen science and more regulatory and professional data monitoring. We want to see this giving us something trustworthy and reliable and viable into the longer term. Our final recommendation is that we strengthen collaborative governance and stakeholder engagement. Effective governance begins with shared priorities and clear roles. We've really seen, and all of us have our views on this, of what we've learned through CaSTCo, how we've used the collaborative monitoring process we've established to build that shared understanding, common approaches, targeted investment, and we've already helped to build local capacity in several regions, all of that feeding back through to how we review and view our regional and national decision-making. But we need more time to develop this. We want to trial a National Catchment Coordination Council next. We believe that these 3 recommendations are not sequential. We believe that the governance to get this right will make all of this work, given the current disparate nature of catchment coordination through to how that informs national decision-making, both strategic and regulatory. The proposed 9 regional hubs through the roadmap mirror the systems planning and new visions of catchment planning with the Independent Water Commission and Cunliffe Review. And blended funding will help to democratise and distribute funding mechanisms to share the ownership and responsibility across government and regulatory funders, but also private and philanthropic funders. The National Catchment Coordination Council trial that we want to launch will respond to the white paper in autumn from government based on the recommendations from the Cunliffe Review. But there are other types of green finance mechanisms we think could help us scale up investment, like green impact bonds. We need monitoring and evaluation oversight to ensure that's all happening from a catchment health perspective, as well as the system we are working towards that is in the interest of public good, with transparent resolution of inefficiencies. So there are 3 recommendations. I hope that's been a helpful guide to the introduction to each of those, and we'll dive into them a lot more throughout today. In terms of charting that path forward, as indicated in our opening welcome, we are doing everything we can to seek national funding and commitment to CaSTCo from both Ofwat and government, but also as well as planning the long-term blended funding required to make CaSTCo work from other sources. We're also sharing local funding guidance as widely as we can amongst these partners on the call, and we'll continue to make that open and accessible. Please come and talk to me about that today. As I said, we want to rapidly start trialling a National Catchment Coordination Council, which is responsive to the government's white paper this autumn. We want to continue the co-design, development and administering of a national citizen science accreditation scheme. We want to continue co-designing and developing those national catchment data standards and building the common single system across the countries. We want to activate blended finance levers as soon as we can and not wait for the future to do this. We've begun discussions about things like a catchment impact bond. Finally, I think the final point I wanted to make is that to activate all of this, we have to expand capacity. We must invest in the resources required at local and regional scales to expand our capacity to deliver CaSTCo, but make that inclusive participation work for all communities, partners on this project, new partners, and all of this will only be able to happen if we start to invest and support the resources required to do CaSTCo. Ultimately, as I said, this is for communities and for the environment. Thank you very much, and looking forward to talking with you all more.
Excellent. Thank you, Jessie. Really great to see the ambition that's laid out within those recommendations. And I think it's clear at the moment that, when we started working on this project, that there are so many disparate views maybe around what this future, what the future holds. But it's been so great to see the cohesion that we've had around these recommendations. This is a provocation, this is a starting point, and I think it's really exciting that we take this forward. And I think that's some of what we will look through in this next panel, as to kind of what it means and that ownership of how we take this forward. So with that, I'd like to invite our panelists to the stage. So for the next part of the session, so please welcome Sarah Jenner, Head of Integrated Water Management at United Utilities, Steve Lane, CaSTCo Project Officer, Will Wakefield, Head of Future Water Framework at DEFRA, and Sasha Greenwood, Director of Science and Policy at Earthwatch Europe. So what we'll do is I'll invite panelists up to the stage, and we'll walk through some of the questions we've got. There'll also be some time at the end for some Q&A. So the Slido was popped up earlier. Hopefully you all quickly grab, there you go, the QR code, and you can join. And what we'll do is, if you're not au fait with Slido, there's a function where it upvotes questions. So in the nature of democracy, I will take those that are upvoted the most. But initially, maybe I'll just ask the panelists, if that's okay, to just introduce yourselves and your roles, as well as what your reflections are of the roadmap, and crucially, what it means to you and your organization's work. So maybe, Sarah, I'll start with you, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So yes, I'm Sarah Jenner. I'm Head of Integrated Water Management at United Utilities, and there's a number of things that I lead on. Firstly, it is about trying to drive more integrated water management approaches. We've sort of started in Greater Manchester, but are starting to proliferate out from there. And that's about getting kind of partners around the table, recognising no organisation can solve the water management challenges we have today, and certainly ones of the future. But the other things that my team leads on are things like our nature strategy and things like mainstreaming nature-based solutions and, you know, basically driving some of the innovation we need to better manage the water environment. And CaSTCo is obviously one of those key projects. So that's me.
Who wants to go next? Will, come on, take us.
Cool. Hi all, I'm Will Wakefield and I work in DEFRA's Clean Water Policy Division. So I head up the Future Water Framework team, which I've been doing for the last 18 months now. So over that period, we've been really focusing on a national level, how can we have more policies to drive greater integration on a catchment and regional basis. And right now, one of the main things we're doing in the Clean Water Division is working out how we can implement some of the IWC Independent Water Commission recommendations, especially on regional planning, new targets and monitoring as well. So it's a very exciting time.
Thanks, Will. Sasha?
Hi, I'm Sasha. I'm Director of Science and Policy at Earthwatch. We are big champions of citizen science and we use citizen science across three environmental focus areas, so nature and cities, farming and nature, and then obviously fresh water. We also have a team dedicated to progressing the science of citizen science. So I oversee the research across those areas and do what I can to align it with UK policy.
Excellent. Steve?
Hi folks, I'm Steve Lane, I'm CaSTCo Delivery Officer in the Anglian demo, and I've had the absolute pleasure and privilege to work with most of you in this room and all our wonderful citizen scientists around the country, people in communities that are intrinsically connected to their rivers and their passion and their dedication to making those rivers healthier, which is something we all need to see. And I think we all need to collaborate and work together now. We've got such a good opportunity. And if I may, I want to cast your minds back to the Olympics in London. And that amazing opening segment, we all watched the clock counting down. And you remember, we started our journey at the top of the River Thames, where in the source of the Thames, and we had that wonderful energy and momentum of the river flowing down through communities, people playing cricket, people sitting and having a picnic by the river, picking up people and energy and momentum all the time. And I think that's where we're at now with CaSTCo, that we're barreling down the river. We've delivered all these gold medals on our journey down the way across our demo catchments. And I think, you know, we've got this really, really cracking opportunity now, and we need to seize it, both at that community level and that high level with colleagues at DEFRA and water companies. I think we really are in a really great position. So seize the day, I think.
Thank you. Absolutely agree. So yeah, maybe you could, Sarah, if you want to kick us off on this, but would be great to have some immediate reflections on what the roadmap means to you, how you take it forward, and what it means to your organisation, if you could start us off.
Excellent. So I think firstly, what I'd like to know is it's amazing we've got here and we have a roadmap. So I think that's really, really important for us. So thank you very much for the work everyone's done to get us to this point. You know, it's hard to pull out in some respects the really important things that excite me. I think the most important thing is probably the coherence of it, but I am particularly keen to see things like the accreditation of citizen science, because I think that will take us a step forward, really, in terms of us all trusting and using that data. And I think we all know there's not enough monitoring of the water environment. We don't fully understand things, and if we don't understand them, we're not solving them. So I think that's a really key one for me, but that doesn't take away from the rest of it. It's all important. It all builds up to something that allows us to continue to have continuous stewardship of our river environment. So that would be it for me.
Thank you, Sarah. Will, would you like to take us through a little bit more about your initial reflections on the roadmap?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like Sarah, I think first of all, just hugely impressive and a massive well done for everybody. Reading through the 70 pages, it was a joy. It was a real joy. And I think there's a few kind of things just picking out. It's, you know, this is hugely important. As Sarah said, to get the right data, we can't make decisions without it, whether that's at the catchment, regional, but especially on the national scale as well, making national policies. We need the right data in order to do that. But I think the second thing, not only is it just important, but the timing of this is makes this incredibly useful, in that kind of we are at a stage kind of now we have the Independent Water Commission report, we have recommendations on there. CaSTCo influenced that, and what really kind of like to see now is that kind of CaSTCo influencing that further. I'd probably actually that's downplaying it, being part of that and design of it. I think as we kind of go forward in the journey, and as the roadmap sets up the next 5 years, the design and the setup of, say, the regional planners, how can CaSTCo basically be a core part of that influencing it as all combined together? I think especially with recommendation 3 in particular as well. So really kind of embedding that thinking.
Excellent. Sasha.
I mean, aside from the fact it's a beautiful document, so hats off to the design team. I can see people scrolling through it now. It's just gorgeous. I like the fact that it is a roadmap, that it's kind of the feeling that I have in the room at the minute is that we're very reflective on where we started, where we've come from, where we're going, and what needs to take place to keep that momentum. In terms of it being aligned to Earthwatch's work, you know, it's all about the power of citizen science. It's all about the power of data, and combining that with governance to create a real change. So I think it's very much aligned with what we do, and just a really lovely document.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Pass on the thanks to the designer. Steve, from your perspective, I suppose you've been really on the ground, haven't you? So living this every day. So interested to hear from your perspective how this is maybe shaping what's going forward.
Yeah, thanks. And again, I and everyone, a lot of people in this room, you know, connected to those communities and those citizen scientists that have really been out there, you know, trying and testing these frameworks. And, you know, we do have, I think we have this structure in place now, and we have this proposal through the roadmap. And I think we connect that with the fact that we've got these communities out there now that are trained, you know, are capable, and we've seen they, you know, they can deliver really good quality data that we can validate and actually, you know, in ways that are instantaneous. I mean, we were looking at the dashboard the other day, and up popped some results from someone that had literally just been out to the River Tud. You know, and we can see that in real time. And the fact that we've come to this juncture now, again, and I'll go back to this being such a fantastic opportunity, we can bring all this stuff together. So in the roadmap does that so well, I think, that, you know, we are in a really good place to move forward and make our rivers healthier. And that is ultimately what I think so many people in the country want to see now. You know, we need to take action for our rivers. And I think we've got this real opportunity to do that. And, you know, again, I'd echo what the panelists are saying. I think we need to grasp that.
Excellent. None of this is without challenge, is it? You know, great that we're celebrating what we've did, but it's, you know, there's going to be some bumps in the road, to kind of continue that analogy. Where do you think those may well be, those kind of barriers and challenges to kind of implementation? I mean, you know, whoever, we'll start with you. What do you see as the kind of the toughest nut to crack within this?
Well, so I think there's 2 things in my mind. One is probably the funding for it. So that is going to be one of the biggest things. But if that can happen, then I think there's no stopping it. But I think that is probably the biggest, in my mind, one of 2 of the biggest challenges. The second of all is, as I said before, it's in what the opportunity is basically making sure that CaSTCo can align and embed with all the work going on, thinking, say, the white paper. That's great. I think one of the challenges, though, is to, over the next few years, maintaining momentum, but also aligning with some of the actual implementation and setup of the regional plans. You know, government's in a kind of design phase right now. When it gets into the very much like delivering phase, then ensuring that the roadmap is maybe a little bit flexible to kind of line with those timings, especially for, well, all through recommendations. So the opportunity is massive, but I do think that's one of the challenges that we all need to work through. And I think it's great that DEFRA and Environment Agency and Natural England are all kind of like part of the coalition.
Sasha?
I mean, it's going to be funding, isn't it, as the main one, but Jesse's already flagged what we're doing to sort of keep keep that going. In terms of sustainability, the other issue is maintaining that engagement with the citizen scientists, and I think ensuring that we feed back. It's all very well keep collecting that data. Eventually people will get fed up of collecting lots of data about how bad the rivers are. So I think it's also thinking about how to begin implementing solutions, and if we can't give them back clean water immediately, what else can we give back to keep them interested?
So other than the sort of obvious one around funding, I think one of the things for me is to make sure we sustain the philosophy of collaboration and relentless positivity as we drive forward. I think they're going to be really key in terms of making sure we do proliferate this and it becomes successful.
So yeah, just to echo all those points, Sasha's point in particular, funding, yes, obviously critical. We need to look at a variety of funding mechanisms to sustain this and transform it from project into a program that has real life and energy in the long term. But we need to think about motivation and momentum. You know, that river analogy, we've got that flow and energy, and we mustn't be building barriers. You know, if we stop something, it takes a long while to build a positive, proactive, strategic partnership with that word trust in it. I know that from experience working with the angling community over many years. You know, it takes a long time. So we need to make sure that we don't put barriers in the way of that flow and momentum and energy. And we need to, you know, really harness the practical examples we've got of people turning that data and energy and momentum and training into actually impact. So the impact pathway, we've got case studies around the country where citizen science data has actually resulted in improvements to river health, and that's what will motivate our communities. That's what people want to see. I think that's the story that we can tell. We've got to these high level things that we need to have those discussions on how you resolve things like funding, but we need to, you know, test and really showcase these examples of where, you know, we've had impacts and we can do this stuff. We have shown in the people in this room, we've shown that we can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the roadmap kind of distills a lot of the innovation pilots that we've seen, you know, across different catchments, and it's there as a vision for the future. I think we'd be interested to kind of see from your perspective, what's different about CaSTCo, what's different about this roadmap, where will it achieve where other things have faltered? Let's hope, projecting forwards. Relentless positivity, as you said there, Sarah. So I mean, interested to hear from your perspective. Yeah, where have previous efforts faltered, and why will this be different?
So I've got pretty focused more on like the last bit of that, which is from, I guess, our perspective in DEFRA, how does this differ? So I think it's not just the collaborative nature of it, I guess, because like collaboration is core, that's great, but it's almost goes further than that. It's kind of the consensus around everyone in the working within the coalition, but also kind of people kind of outside of that as well. So I think that for me, kind of, that's what feels different, and I think it means then kind of as people, you know, change in post, we have different ministers, etc. As we have done since the last 4 years, well, 6 years since CaSTCo kind of first initiated, but it still kind of remains like a really kind of respected and something that kind of people want to do. So I think that's that sort of consensus really makes it feel sort of different kind of now. I think that, and it's meant that it's been as a project incredibly resilient to all the changes, and the stage not only relevant but kind of like just like the foundation of kind of what we need to do when we're thinking about the new system.
I think the fact that CaSTCo has really practiced what it preaches about co-creation and, you know, cross-party buy-in. It's really a bottom-up kind of project, and I think because so many people have been invested from the start, they are likely to remain invested as the roadmap progresses. So I think it's that co-creation element that sort of separates it from the rest.
I think one of the things for me, I think we've done a bit of both here, that we've learned a lot from the bottom up, but we've also brought people together to co-create that national roadmap. And I think that's quite important, those two ingredients. So it's tying it together so that we have got direction of travel. It's really key. Yep.
Steve.
Yeah, again, just to echo that with the roadmap, actually the concept of bringing organisations and people together to work on, you know, shared concerns about our river environment. And we've seen through CaSTCo, you know, some fantastic examples of people that are, you know, can be at loggerheads with each other, actually coming together for, you know, to really deliver some fantastic work, you know, and we've got, again, some really great examples of, you know, where citizen scientists themselves have gone from the whole journey of seeing a problem with their local river that they, you know, they walk their dog down to the bridge and they're worried about it, and they've actually reported that and been on that journey with the Environment Agency and with the Anglian Water as well in our patch, you know, and actually seeing themselves and the improvements to their own river in their own place, in their own space. You know, they can track that entire journey, you know, and we've seen that in, you know, in our own eyes actually happening. And I think, you know, I think the roadmap really brings that together in a way that, you know, we've got that framework to really scale this up now, learn from the experiences around the country, build on that energy in the demonstration areas, share that knowledge and learning and experience, and grow it organically from the bottom up as well as the top down. I think that's really quite exciting for me.
Excellent, and I'll start with you, Steve, on this. The key to this really driving it forward is going to be ownership and people being on the hook for certain things and having accountability for that. You know, we've set out a vision for what that might look like. Those things may change. You know, we've got a huge kind of pretty disruptive thing going on at the moment within the IWC and how regulation of the water environment is conducted. But I think, you know, for us, you know, with that aside, how will you take this forward? So I'm really interested to kind of understand from you and your own ability to take ownership of this and champion the roadmap in your organization. How will you do that? How will you drive forward, and what most resonates with you?
I think, for example, you know, building on the trust and that collaborative working element, you know, so we've worked a lot with Cabot Partnerships, worked a lot with the River Lark Catchment Partnership, the Wensum Catchment Partnership, where people are coming together in that sort of forum and that way where we can actually collaboratively plan what we need to understand about our rivers and what actions are needed to deliver those improvements. And I think central to that is trust. And that's something, again, that CaSTCo has helped to really bring into focus and actually move forward, where if we can all be around a table and we all agree the reality of what our river is and what is affecting our river, if we can agree that the data and evidence that we've got is sound, you know, and accurate, we can move in from arguing about plus minus 6 or 7 here or a milligram per litre here into actually collaboratively working together and delivering those improvements we need to see. That's a fundamental shift to get communities into that mix, into those conversations and into that evidence gathering process. You know, and that's something that we've, again, all of us in CaSTCo have had that experience and we've delivered that. And I think we've got that groundswell of energy to really grow that approach. And I think that's fundamental to cracking this problem, this massive public concern about our rivers at the moment. I think, you know, we've got a real, again, I'd just say a real opportunity with this. So,
yeah, agree. Thank you. Sarah.
I think for me, one of the key things that we really need to drive is continuing to build those use cases, the demonstration of the value, because that's what's going to help us get that sustainable funding stream. So that's, I think, quite key for me.
Yeah, and I suppose for those who haven't maybe had the chance, we try to kind of pull out some of the kind of value propositions. You know, when we look at how this will be taken forward, different organizations will see things differently within those recommendations, and we try to kind of communicate some of the value to them. They need, you know, they need beefing out, they need, like, you know, ground truthing and all these kind of things. We've been able to do that to a point, but really kind of pushing that forward, I think from my perspective, will unlock that kind of sustainable and blended model of funding that we're looking for. So we're not necessarily going to the same pots each time with the same asks. But yeah, Sasha.
I mean, it's such an easy project to champion because it's such an easy project to believe in, and it sounds so cheesy in a building that's named Friends or whatever, but there's this wonderful network of people in this room who don't have to agree on every tiny detail, but respect each other's opinion. And so I think when you've got that in one room here, championing the project and moving forward with it is going to be quite easy and definitely something that I can take away is, you know, a room of friends who I happily disagree with over little details, but ultimately agree in the direction that we want to go in.
Well,
So I think the funding element in particular is one thing definitely will be taken away, and I guess in order to do that within the department, within DEFRA, really just, I guess, promoting and using kind of the great information that all of you kind of gathered and synthesized. So this is actually really, really incredibly useful thing for government to invest in. So the funding, definitely. Then also, as I said before, kind of the alignment to making sure that the alignment of the timescales when we're developing regional planning, etc., kind of align as well with CaSTCo. So no opportunities are missed.
Awesome, thank you, panelists. I'd like to open up to the floor now, if that's okay. There's some Q&A going on in Slido. We've got some questions coming in. It's a relatively small room, so it'd be nice maybe if we had a few different voices coming in. So there's one here right at the top of the tree. Are there plans for active outreach? Whose was that question? If you're up for it, and do you want to ask it? No, we're not getting. No, let's not do that. I'll ask the question. All right. That's the last time I get invited to this. Okay, so yeah, you got more of my voice. Apologies. So are there plans for active outreach to spread the principles and findings, etc., to those who have not been actively involved, e.g. Yorkshire, or e.g. anyone else who hasn't been involved, maybe? Yeah. I mean, this is, I'll pick up on this maybe before I invite the panelists in, but I think this is something that we are trying to actively. So when I'm not working on the CaSTCo roadmap, I also work as part of the co-delivery team for the Offshore Innovation Fund. So this is something we are actively addressing through the Implementation Fund, for example, and other types of initiatives within the core programming to understand how we enable implementation to happen at scale. We see a lot of pilots, we see a lot of trials. The water sector is not maybe, atypical. That happens in many sectors, but it's a real nut for us to crack that we really need to get better as to how we scale that, how we avoid those kind of valleys of death and all that kind of thing. So there are mechanisms there. That's a plug for the Offshore Innovation Fund. Watch this space. There are things coming out. We are designing mechanisms to really reach into that. But yeah, it is a thing that we need to look at. It was a large project, CaSTCo, but there are obviously still some temporal, spatial gaps, partner gaps, all these kind of things, because there is a limited amount of funding available. But I don't know. I'm happy to ask the panel: is there plans for active outreach? How do you bring those fast followers with you, and what will you do to enable that? Who wants to go before I pick?
I mean, I think
Go on, Sasha.
everyone within this room can amplify outreach simply by talking about, you don't necessarily have to talk about the project as a whole, because it's confusing and difficult to speak to somebody for 30 seconds on the whole of CaSTCo, but you can certainly lean in on the principles and on the three pillars that we talk about, and champion the work that's been doing. So I think within this room, everybody has a certain responsibility to ramp up outreach, to keep engaging citizen scientists and spreading the good word.
And there is, in the break, there is almost like a marketplace, if you will. There are showcases of the different catchment schemes. So please go and talk to people. Find us. These lovely people from the project as well will give you those kind of mechanisms and routes in to understand more of and how you get involved. Naturally, that's what we're trying to do within the roadmap as well as scale participation. But don't be a stranger. Come and talk to us and understand how you can actively get involved. Anyone else want to come in on the kind of scaling point? Yes, Sarah.
I can touch on that a little bit. So I do think the outreach piece is quite important, because one of the things I'm conscious of is we don't leave parts of the country behind, because that massively pulls away from the value of everything we've done through the roadmap, trying to get that national consistency. So I do think it is important. So, I'm quite happy to offer myself and my team to talk to people in Yorkshire, not too far away from the Northwest, about what we've learned. So, quite happy to do that.
Nice, thank you.
Yes, well, I guess just following on from that as well, incredibly happy to use the different networks to promote kind of CaSTCo. So on that kind of reaching that kind of like national scale, I'm really happy to have a chat about what exactly that looks like after.
Thank you. No doubt you'll be taken up on that. Steve?
And I mean, it kind of is happening. We've got the register CaSTCo through the website, and I think Paul and Simon would tell you that is not a quiet inbox. CaSTCo has established a brand effectively, and that's really important. We talk about trust and strategic partnership and everything else. That is a vehicle to advance, reaching out to people and making people aware. and bringing people into that mix and having that consistency and collaboration that we all need to see. I've been up to Yorkshire, actually, to the Yorkshire Rivers Trust Conference and across to East Mercia. So we've got colleagues from East Mercia Rivers Trust here as well. So, you know, and I think there's a role here to strengthen catchment partnerships, that collaborative catchment-based approach. You know, what we do on one part of a river affects another part of a river. We all need to be joined up in terms of how we feed that data and evidence into all of this myriad of work with AMP and, you know, the great work that Rivers Trust do with river habitat improvement and everything else. You know, we need to have a strong catchment-based approach. So we need to think about funding in that respect, as well as citizen science and monitoring. We need to think about how that, you know, we join that up. And we've got those opportunities like through the Broadland Catchment Partnership with the Wensum and the Cameo Catchment Partnership with the Lark. You know, those demonstrator areas can grow organically into those neighbour catchments quite easily that way, and we can grow that way as well. So, you know, testing that alongside delivering actual impact. So,
thank you. The second question there is around who pays. So I think it's obviously a fundamental question. I think possibly less easy to maybe take as a panel here. We'd invite whoever posed that question to have a look at the roadmap. I think it's quite clear there. Go on. Yep.
Well, I just didn't pose the question. Can I just reframe that question? So a lot of talks about funding.
Yep.
Can I reframe it to resourcing? You mentioned markets, you mentioned investment, you mentioned funding. So interested to get panelists' thoughts on the resourcing going forward.
Yep.
Is that more about cap in hand funding and activity, or is this more about developing products and services to which someone buys or pays for them?
Good question.
I would always go both. And the more you can diversify your funding streams, the better. I mean, that's such a cop-out answer, but that's the one I'm going with.
Any others come in on that? I mean, we've spoken a little bit around value propositions. I think, you know, naturally that kind of language talks to how we engage potential funders in seeing the value of what we're delivering, and how then that activates them more as a kind of passive stakeholder into an investor maybe. So there's a lot of work to be done there. It's a kind of relatively nascent market in some areas. Maybe we need to learn from other sectors that have done well in that space. I think we'll continue to do that, obviously, but I don't know if there are any more thoughts from the panel at all.
I guess there's one related comment is actually reading through the roadmap and actually then having kind of like you say in each recommendation where you plan to get the money from, how much it's going to be. That is a great kind of stage one. And I guess what would be useful to then see is like, well, actually, what are kind of almost like the backup options though if that doesn't happen, and where do you then go if you only get half that or something like that? So I think at the moment, so roadmap, that's fantastic. I think as we kind of go on through time, how does it then adapt to the kind of current financial kind of situations?
Someone has a question here.
Yeah, just a quick. The other way of looking at who pays question is who benefits. But I think if we look at what CaSTCo and citizen science in particular, greater engagement by communities in the rivers, what that delivers for all the organisations in this room, it really shouldn't be hard to come up with the money between us, because it benefits us all so much.
Okay, I think that brings us to time. There was a particular question there, maybe Sarah, if you want to, maybe yes, no on the water companies contributing their large data sets from the WINEP investigation to the data set. Is that something we can give an insight into, or is it early days still?
I mean, there'll be early days, but, you know, once those investigations are completed, you know, previous data around things like the chemical investigations program being shared.
Yeah.
They're all things that are potentially up for grabs.
Yeah.
But I think it's getting the data to insight that's quite important.
Sure. Go on, last question, Melissa. Which one was that on the WINEP data? Okay, all right. So if whoever asked that, Melissa is there from Stream. Cool. All right. I think with that, I'm going to bring it to a close.